Somewhere in a sunlit classroom, a child once raised their hand and asked why. And for centuries, that simple question has terrified tyrants. There was a time, believe it or not, when access to knowledge wasn't just available, it was promoted. A time when libraries weren't war zones and teachers weren't political targets. Sure, not every student took the opportunity, but every so often, a small town kid from eastern Arkansas, no legacy name, no trust fund, no particular reason at all, would pick up a copy of Voltaire or Thoreau or Baldwin, flip through a Renoir print in a borrowed art book, and something would catch. A spark, a fire in the soul that couldn't be stamped out, a hunger for understanding, for why things are the way they are when adults are too quick to say that's just the way it is. Or good question, but the answer is a little too complicated. That kind of fire is dangerous for despots, for dogmatists, for would-be kings in red hats, and maybe that's why they want to snuff it out. Let's not mince words. The American public education system was once a cathedral of promise, a messy, imperfect, chaotic temple to the idea that anyone, black or white, poor or privileged, farm kid or city brat, could learn to think, argue, invent, and build. It was the grand equalizer, the rough-edged engine of democracy that could launch a plumber's daughter into the stars or put a poet in the Senate. But that engine is now being gutted by the scalpel of fear and the sledgehammer of ideology. What it should be is simple, a place where thought runs wild and free like coyotes at dusk, a place where no book is banned, where children learn the meaning of revolution and reason, where they are taught not what to think but how to think. Public education at its best is a firebrand, an open wound of curiosity stitched together with facts and questions and the audacity to challenge the damn status quo. But what it is becoming is a lobotomy in slow motion. Across the country, a cabal of evangelical ideologues and flag-waving fear merchants are charging through school boards like bulls in the Library of Alexandria. They scream about pornography in classrooms, but let's call that what it is. A Trojan horse stuffed with Bibles, censorship, and political ambition. There is no smut on your third grader's reading list, only the dangerous weapon of empathy and understanding. And that's what scares them. A book that dares to say, here's a world beyond your own, is far more threatening to authoritarian minds than any centerfold. Because when you raise a child on To Kill a Mockingbird, they begin to question justice. When you let them read The Diary of Anne Frank, they start asking how fascism finds its foothold. And when they find Baldwin, Morrison, Angelou, Vonnegut, or Orwell, they begin to see through the paper-thin disguise of the American theocracy in waiting. The truth is that these people do not fear pornography, they fear ideas. They fear black authors and queer voices. They fear critical race theory not because they understand it, but because it forces them to look in the mirror and see the ghost of Bull Connor staring back. They fear education because they cannot control it, not without burning it to the ground and building their own golden calf of chartered indoctrination atop its ashes. They cry God was taken out of schools as if their children can't carry faith in their hearts like every generation before them. But this was never about God, it's about power. It's about forcing your God, your truth, your mythology onto every desk and into every young brain. You want theology, preach it in your churches, in your homes. Raise your child with every biblical lesson you wish, but do not lay claim to mine. And here's the cracked mirror of it all. These zealots love to thump the Constitution like it's a Gideon's Bible, yet split on the First Amendment like it's a roach in their coffee. The founders, godless or God-fearing, built a nation on the bones of Enlightenment thought. Jefferson, Adams, Franklin, they would explode with fury at this mass amnesia, this state-sponsored stupidity, this crusade to flatten the minds of our young into holy Plato. Because a well-informed electorate is the nightmare of every would-be dictator. It's hard to sell snake oil to a chemist. It's hard to sell war to a historian. And it's real goddamn hard to sell theocracy to a child who knows the difference between governance and gospel. So they want to privatize the system, starve it, defund it, smear it in headlines and call it broken, then swoop in like missionary vultures offering salvation in the form of classical Christian education. They'll teach obedience, modesty, silence, American history with all the slavery scrubbed out and all the genocide politely rebranded as manifest destiny. They'll teach creationism as biology and turn civics into a hymn, But education is not supposed to be a prayer, it's supposed to be a question. To hell with the good old days. That's just nostalgia with a noose. The good old days were only good for the few who held the whip. Every generation has a choice. Do you pass the torch or do you snuff it out because the light offends your delusions? We now stand at a precipice. At stake is not just curriculum or school funding or the number of banned books in Texas. At stake is whether the next generation will be armed with questions or shackled with dogma, whether they will build a better world or beg for scraps from the pulpit of the past. Education is not a luxury. It is the cornerstone of the republic, and if we let it fall, so too falls everything else. Justice, freedom, dignity, and hope. So demand better, teach louder, and for the love of reason, never stop asking why. Because Thomas Jefferson said that history in general only informs us of what bad government is. And friend, we have been well informed lately. Defiance till death.